Welcome to the SBDC's Business Blueprint, where we guide entrepreneurs through the building blocks of business success, one insight at a time. I'm your host, Jeffrey Beckles, and today we're looking into the foundational steps to becoming a successful entrepreneur in the Bahamas and the importance of formalizing your business. We've got an informative discussion lined up for you today with two special guests from the Department of Inland Revenue. We're happy to welcome Dexter Fernando, responsible for registration, and Charlene Barton. Welcome back to the Blueprint, and it's exciting to have you here today. We're going to be talking about a very important matter relating to VAT and VAT filings. And so let's get right into our discussions. One of the primary roles of the Inland Revenue Department is to ensure that the country's taxes are collected and those persons who are in business in particular are compliant in those tax areas, particularly VAT, property tax, and some of the other taxes that we talked about in a previous episode. As it relates to VAT, who is required to pay VAT and how does that relate to small businesses? Because not every small business is required to pay VAT. So let's talk about who's responsible for paying VAT, and then we'll get into VAT filings. So who's responsible for paying VAT?
All right, persons responsible for paying VAT are business licenses owners who are over $100,000. If your business license turnover is $100,000 or over, you are responsible to register, charge VAT, and pay VAT.
Aha. 100,000 and over. That is a low ceiling, yes, but have we seen small businesses respond, and are they registering as required?
Yes, they have. Actually, those under the threshold of 100,000 in specific industries find themselves registering. Why? It find it that the industry requires them to be a VAT registered. Let me say what that means. If I am in the hotel industry, they would prefer to only deal with individuals that are inside the VAT net because they can net off that information, that VAT, which they are paying out. And so it might be beneficial for that individual. So for a small business, they have to first step back and see if registering for VAT would be beneficial for their organization. And then do they have what is necessary to be that registered? One of the things is that you must have proper records, digital records, and keep that record for a minimum of 5 to 7 years.
Wow.
So that talk about a storage of information.
That's a significant component, yes. So 5 to 7 years, the process of submitting VAT returns, VAT filings, it's still an area of many businesses, matured businesses and new businesses. We still find that it's a stumbling block. Talk to us about that process. How easy is that process? And what are the key things that businesses need to look out for who are vatable, right? Is the term that we use. What are some of the things that they need to look for?
Well, they need to look for it's key, like he said, that you must keep your invoices because at any given time we can come to your establishment and assess an audit. So I mean, for sure, you need to have proper digital accounting records. You also need to make sure that if an accountant is filing for you, that they are up to date on the rules and regulations as it relates to putting in your VAT returns. And when it comes to payment, you want to make sure that you are paying at the correct amount when you do your filings.
So is there a ceiling? Because if I understand you correctly, if I'm at $100,000 a year in revenue, I'm required to register as a business that is charging VAT, collect that VAT, and pay it. So am I hearing you correctly then that at $100,000 as a small business, I'm required to retain the services of a CPA in order to facilitate the process?
But you don't need a CPA. A CPA only comes in when you're going to do the business license return and you anticipate it to be above $250,000. So the registrant, the act basically, the VAT Act of 2014 basically says if you are coming close to that figure. So when you are reaching 89,000 and you think in the next quarter that you are going to surpass that 100,000, we're recommending individuals, small businesses to go ahead and register for value-added tax. To be compliant, we would prefer you come in and register than for us to go and raise an audit on you on what we've found in the industry.
Okay. So then, if I don't need a CPA, what I need then is to ensure that within my operating business, I have a reliable, trustworthy system of accounting that you would accept as fact, and then you will decide whether or not you will come and test those figures.
That's correct.
So the important part of it then is every business, every small business, if you're generating $100,000 or more, very important, ensure that you have a good accounting system implemented as a part of your day-to-day business.
Correct.
And even as a basic principle, accounting system you should have, even if you're not a VAT registrant. So how do you calculate if you're at a profit on a monthly basis? This is a tool that can measure your business for you, and especially as you're looking at the first 3 years of operation. You want to have that point of sale system in there. We don't try to market a certain product, but a lot of our clients prefer using Excel, QuickBooks, etc. But whatever is easier, the cloud systems that are available, digital systems are available. Whatever is there, it should be available accessible to the department. We're seeing industries maybe where the person is not good at bookkeeping, mechanics, and they need to outsource it or find a helpful friend, an accountant, who is or a person who's good at just bookkeeping to help them with those type of information.
You make a very good point, because here at the SBDC, one of the primary bits of advice we give to every business owner, startup or well-established, have good accounting records, because at some point down the line, whether you're dealing with DIR, NIB, a lending institution, you're going to need good records, right? But let's also talk about the issue of VAT collection, accounting for the VAT, and the timeliness in which we pay the VAT, because we hear a lot of conversations about delinquency and so forth and so on. What do we need to do? What do we need to say to business owners as it relates to collecting it, accounting for it, and returning it to the Treasury?
Oh, that's a lot. So the first thing we want to say is, first of all, it's an offense if you're collecting VAT and you are not a VAT registrant. So we're asking you to, if you are charging individuals, invoicing individuals for VAT, you need to ensure that you are VAT registered. We do not take kindly to that. And if there's an individual out there that they are questioning a business, we have made that information accessible on our webpage. They can search the tax identification number of a company and see if they're VAT registered.
So before you continue, let me hear you right. You're saying that there possibly could be Bahamian businesses who have not registered as a VAT business, but are actually collecting or charging and collecting VAT from its customers.
That's correct.
That's correct.
And that is definitely a violation of the law.
Yes, it is.
And how does a client know? I walk into your establishment, you charge me VAT. I'm expecting to be charged VAT as a client, right? But let's say a client wants to find out if you are properly registered to charge me VAT. How do I do that?
Well, two things. Once you walk into the establishment, you can also look for their VAT certificate. It is a very clear, basic white paper, but there's a VAT emblem in the back of the paper that situates you as a VAT registrant. Also, you can look at their receipting. Normally, our receipting follow a certain procedure. You'll have the company name, the address, the TIN number. You can also go on our website as well and pull up that TIN number to see if that person is a VAT registrant with the department.
So every business, from a licensing standpoint, from a VAT verification standpoint, should have those certificates clearly identified in the business operation. So every customer would be able to see it.
That's correct.
And we're thankful for the public, because they're the ones who, if they go into a place and they do not see it, they refuse. And you have the best power. Walk away from that business if they are unable to furnish you the VAT certificate or show you proof from the webpage that they are a VAT registered.
When we come back from this break, we talked about accounting for it and the cycle of paying it. And we want to pick up on that because that's a real issue and a real challenge for many businesses in the Bahamas. That's what leads to delinquency, which we will get more into after this break. We're going to be right back with our special guest. Please stay with us.
At BOB, we take pride in our business banking.
I chose Bank of the Bahamas because it was a Bahamian-owned bank. The bank has certainly supported our evolution through overdraft facilities, purchasing of equipment, facilitating of salary payments, and I really believe that Bank of the Bahamas is able to help in the development of the local economy. I would truly recommend the services at Bank of the Bahamas.
Welcome back to the SBDC's Business Blueprint, where we're having an exciting conversation with Dexter Fernando and Charlene Barton from the Department of Inland Revenue. When we took the break, we were talking about the accountability for VAT, and now let's talk about the obligation to pay the VAT that has been collected on behalf of the Department of Inland Revenue. What is the cycle that businesses are required to repay, well, not to repay, but to pay that money back to the Department of Inland Revenue?
All right, so we have two cycles. We have a monthly and we have quarterly. So for our monthly persons, just say for an example, you filed January 2024. You are then obligated to file your return February 21st. If you're a quarterly, the year is divided in quarters. So you're looking at January, February, March. You file April 21st.
Okay.
So when I said file, you can, most persons can file as of April 1st, but you have until the 21st to make your payment, to make your final payment.
The collection of VAT is mandated by law. The accounting of that VAT is mandated by law.
Yeah.
The payment of that collected VAT is equally undergirded by law. Are we seeing a reasonable or high level of compliance as it relates to companies paying that money on a timely basis?
No, we have a lot of persons that don't pay on time. They reach out to the department to try to make up some payment plan or some arrangement to have it done. The department is working with a lot of businesses because we don't want to see the public get affected in a way that the business have to shut down. So we tend to normally work with big businesses to make sure that their obligation is met, and then we also have to make an obligation for the department as well.
Right. Now, you mentioned big business, but Dexter, every business who is required to pay VAT ought to pay it because, one, it is legal, it's bound by law, and it must be done. Let's talk then about what this generally leads to, because one, if companies don't pay it, there's a negative impact on the availability of cash flow for the government to provide the services that we expect for government to provide. But then there's also this other growing challenge of delinquency. Right. Because if you're not paying, it means that you're delinquent, and over a period of time, if that number rises to an X percentage of businesses who are not paying VAT, the impact of that. Let's talk about the impact.
It's a widespread felt because the ability of government to do certain things is damaged by, if you look at it, value-added tax surpassed customs last year.
Wow.
And so if the targets are not met, then of course the ultimate goals and objectives of government are not met. I call ourselves very Nassau-centric. We don't see the need for improvement of roads on the Family Islands unless you drop in a hole in Andros, etc. And so the revenue collected from VAT help to offset those needed throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
So it's really important that the businesses understand you've collected that money. It's not your operating cash. Mm-hmm. It needs to be paid out in a timely basis in accordance with the law. But then the department has also set up a process to work with delinquent entities. Let's talk about what that process is and how that works. Because at the end of the day, the ultimate objective is to collect the taxes that have been paid by the consumer. So let's talk to us about this process that you have for dealing with delinquent accounts.
Well, with delinquent accounts, we prefer you to come to us rather than we come to you.
Right.
So for delinquent accounts, once you come to us, you let us know what situation is. We assess how far back are you. We're also willing to work out payment plans if you come down with so much amount, depending on how far back are you delinquent.
Okay.
Everything is taken as a case by case basis because not every situation is the same.
So in this case, Dexter, then the department is offering to work with delinquent accounts to ensure they get current.
That's correct. So Ms. Barton talked about two things. We prefer you come to us than we come to you. So we coming to you looks totally different.
Right.
We coming to you means penalties. And we coming to you means we could do a demand letter to your financial institute and garnish your bank accounts. And so we prefer that it's the other way. You coming to us, and let's settle the matter before we coming to you.
That, I think, you could not ask for a better opportunity to become current in your VAT payments. When you talked about garnishing, or it's punitive, in other words, we know that the department would not like to take that route.
Right.
Can you reiterate for delinquent accounts, small, large, medium, why that is so important to recognize that you do have what we call in business a payable that's due to the government through the Department of Inland Revenue, treated as such? Why is that so important for Bahamian businesses to understand that it's your obligation to pay, not the government's obligation to run you down?
Yeah, that's true. We have to change that mindset that it's not a part of your operational cash flow. Remember, it's a consumption tax. And so as you go through that, you should consider it as an expense.
Right.
And leave it there. And on a timely basis, over the years, we've placed things in the act that we can use, but we don't want to go to that point. So if we find that individuals are more compliant with the submissions, we've actually had to reach to a point of developing a debt collection unit within the department. So our levels are growing.
Right.
But like Ms. Barton stated, we're not interested in shutting any business down.
Right.
We want to work with them. And so we have to change that mindset. You collect that VAT, then give government its little thing.
Aye.
Give us the little thing that you
It's a part of the cost of doing business.
Yes.
Question, is there an amnesty period for VAT delinquency, or is it the fact that the registrant knows they've collected, come to us if you're having challenges and we will work with you? Is there an amnesty period
No,
for that?
there's no amnesty for value-added tax. That is a consumer tax that you would have collected. So we don't offer that. I don't see the department moving forward and offering that. It's just that the registrant needs to understand the obligation once they sign on to VAT.
Okay.
The VAT Act is a very heavy act. I tend persons to go and read it. Find what are your obligations as it relates to the department. And once they have that fair understanding, we are willing to work with persons as it relates to delinquency.
We're going to take a break. We'll continue our conversation and wrap up this episode. Continue to stay with us. As we take this break, we'll come back and get right into our mentorship moment with Ariel Pindo. We'll be right back.
Tiny Tots was birthed about a year after I gave birth to my daughter. I was looking for better alternatives to feed her. Organic was on top of my list, and the options were very few here and limited. So I started with deliveries and online orders, and it just went from there. I'm passionate about the business because I'm passionate about health. Health for me is something close to home because I have a lot of family members who oftentimes, before the age of 50, are diagnosed with some sort of non-communicable disease. I realized that it starts from young. Automatically, people assume that organic is expensive, and organic isn't necessarily expensive, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to bring a product that was readily available for persons from all walks of life. I wanted something that all socioeconomic classes could have access to and be able to feed their children with healthier options. So Tiny Tots is all about organic. One of my major milestones that I'm proud of is the fact that I'm able to scale the way that I envisioned from the very onset. SBDC helped me with that tremendously with the loan and the grant funding that I got. From the onset, they were very helpful. They made sure that I had everything that I need to run a proper business, making sure that the business was not only profitable, but also sustainable. And I figured that if we can get a nation of people to start eating better from their younger, we don't have to try and force it into their diets as they get older, or even worse, when they find out that they're sick.
Are you ready to take the next step in growing your business? Check your eligibility for our guaranteed loan program at sbdcbahamas.com/GLP or call 461-7232 to learn more about how the SBDC can support your business.
We have to be mindful that as much as we want touristic development, what impacts the fisheries? Over-coastal development, destruction of mangroves, overzealousness of the industry. We have a new movement called do-it-yourself fishing. That is anglers who come to the Bahamas, they don't engage in hiring a guide. Because of this approach, you are going to have people who are going to exhaust the resources.
This is an industry that's preserved. It should be for Bahamian guides only. We have the DIYs coming in here and they're destroying our flats.
We try not to overfish certain areas, so we'll fish a certain area and we'll back off for a while because we don't want the fish to feel too much pressure.
It's not just using the buzzwords of the environment and the ecology. The tourists can be educated that the more you support local ownership, people are doing it obviously the right way, the more the economic circulation in the communities.
I think the most critical thing is accountability, and that accountability by way of legislation, both the Act and regulations to govern fly fishing in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
I look at conservation efforts and the regulation that I've seen to protect the industry that's in the developed world. All of those jurisdictions have implemented strong regulation to protect their fisheries. We are way behind, but we do have a movement and a consciousness. We know where we need to be. Those are our resources, and we have to make an exerted effort to protect it because that's the only gift that we have been given. And if we don't protect that, then we lose everything.
Building the lodge, I understood clearly the mission to continue what my father started. From this lodge, it has served as the headquarters. We finally got legislation passed in 2016, and it legitimized the guiding profession. We pushed to get the program established into BAMSI in the training of the next generation of guides, but it extends way beyond that.
We need more Bahamians in the industry who are doing the research to provide the information to the industry, that is to fishermen and to everybody who benefits from the resources.
We don't know the resources in this country. We grew up just hearing about sun, sand, and sea.
It is going to be through education and awareness, whether it's within our schools, whether it's in our communities, to conserve the environment, that is going to sustain the fly fishing industry.
Well, the future of fly fishing in the company, I think fly fishing is a very, very unique spot. I think it's going to get better because the guides are now being all certified. They're all getting proper knowledge of handling and how to run the whole system.
If you're a youngster and you want to get into this, it's a job like any other job. You got to live it. You got to love it.
Young entrepreneurs coming in, you want that kind of interest. You want that kind of drive and desire. You want to carry that. You want to become the product.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Hi, everyone. I'm Ariel Pinder, your host for the Mentorship Minute. Today, we're talking about scaling your business without overextending yourself. While it's exciting to grow, your expansion should be balanced. Here's a tip. Focus on refining your core services or products before adding new ones. This helps to ensure the quality of your product or service while keeping customer satisfaction at an all-time high. Also, consider outsourcing non-core tasks to other professionals. By delegating roles like accounting or social media management, you can free up your time to focus on what you do best. Remember, growth doesn't mean do everything yourself. The Small Business Development Center wants to help you succeed as you grow your business. When you need help developing your business, reach out to us via sbdcbahamas.com. We'll be back after this commercial break.
Thank you, Ariel. As we wrap up this episode, I'd like to continue our conversation with Dexter and Charlene. Guys, before we took the break, we were talking about the process of managing delinquent accounts for paying VAT. During the break, you mentioned the fact that there was another segment of VAT registrants that I thought was very exciting. So tell us a little bit about that segment and why that segment has been created.
Okay, that's the flat rate scheme. So you have registrants who are from 100,000 to 400,000. Once you reach that bracket, you can apply for the flat rate scheme. Now, it's an approval process. The department has to see that you're not exceeding over 400,000. Once you are approved, your setup is kind of different. Even though you charge the consumer 10%, you only pay the department back 6.5%.
Wow,
so for small businesses, that can work in a benefit for them.
So you're basically incentivizing them to be good at what they do and pay the VAT on time. You mentioned, Dexter, about VAT rulings. Let's talk a little bit about that.
So with any act, you need to break it down for the typical man to understand. And so in various industries over time, individuals want an understanding of how to apply the VAT on it. How do I apply VAT on debt that is never collected? How do I apply VAT on vouchers or gift cards? And so on our department's page, inlandrevenue.finance.gov.bs, we have a section called VAT rulings that helps for individuals to understand how to apply VAT in certain situations. And so we have industry guides and VAT rulings. So if there's a difficult time within an organization, they do not know how to handle it. Let's say someone asks for a refund or brings back an item, how do I apply that onto my report? There are guides and rulings that are placed onto the department's page that assist in the interpretation of the value-added tax.
Interesting. So as we think about the department and its high-level overarching commitment, it is desired that every business in the Bahamas, north to south, east to west, is registered with the Department of Inland Revenue, initially as a business license with the TIN and then the appropriate VAT categories. It is also, from our conversation, we glean that the function of government in the Bahamas is becoming more synergistic, where various government departments are interlinked. So when we come to Inland Revenue has sight of my business life across the entire landscape of the business community. And that's very encouraging. What is also critically important for us to take away from that is every business needs to appreciate the fact that this evolution is taking place. There's been the commitment to digitize government and to improve its efficiencies and functions. But a key component to that is the participation of every business in that exercise so that we do become more efficient. And so final thoughts as we wrap up our time together today.
Just want to put it out there that we are even though we're operated by the government, we still serve the public as well. So if you have any questions, any suggestions, the department is always willing and open to help the average person understand if they're a VAT registrant, if they need to get a TCC, or if they need to get a business license. So the department is open to help our own people.
Thank you. Dexter, final thoughts?
Well, we didn't talk about the other one, the Hawksbill Creek Agreement. Yes. And so in the Hawksbill Creek Agreement, there's no business license needed from the Bahamas government. You're a port licensee, but you still need to be a VAT registered. And recently there has been the vacation rental home segment, right, the Airbnbs, etc. And so we're asking those individuals who are playing in that field, they need to become a VAT registrant.
Very important for us. Well, this has certainly been an exciting conversation, very informative. In fact, I learned something new today about the categories of VAT. We hope this discussion has provided you with some useful information and some inspiration. Thanks for tuning into the SBDC's Business Blueprint. Until next time, turn today's insights into tomorrow's success. We hope to see you again. Goodbye for now.